Amongst the Big Mom pirates, Katakuri is second only to Big Mom. He's an extremely powerful pirate, but how does he compare against each of the warlords? Let's find out. If you're not fully caught up with the One Piece manga, then here's your spoiler warning. And before you get into it, please consider sharing, and subscribing. Now let's hop right into it. Katakuri ate the mochi fruit, allowing him to generate, manipulate, and become mochi. He awakened his devil fruit and honed his observation haki so well that he can see several seconds into the future. This allows him to anticipate his opponent's moves and counter them properly. So with his set of powers, how does he perform against each of the warlords in a one-on-one fight? First up, we got the genius jester himself, Star Clown Buggy. Now, putting the memes aside, Buggy doesn't stand a chance. Katakuri flicks a jelly bean at his forehead and the fight is over. There's no difficulty in this fight. But on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have Mihawk versus Katakuri. Mihawk clashed with several of Whitebeard's commanders during Marineford, and he wasn't even breaking a sweat. He wasn't dominating any of them, but I don't get the impression he was going all out. He was simply just there to be there. However, based on lore, Mihawk is said to rival Shanks before he lost his arm. Now, I know some people want to downplay Shanks and say he's a fraud, a snitch, a rat, but Shanks is an absolute unit. This man thwarted Kaido from arriving at Marineford and then put a stop to the war by declaring if anyone wanted to throw hands, then square up with him. Yet nobody wanted the smoke. If Shanks can paralyze an admiral with his haki alone, and Mihawk is comparable to Shanks since they used to clash, I can't see a reality where Katakuri doesn't get low-diffed by Mihawk. Post-time skip Crocodile is a weird one to gauge since we haven't seen what he's fully capable of yet. During Alabasta, he lost to pre-time skip Luffy, so it should be a low-diff win for Katakuri. But Crocodile showed us more of what he can do in Marineford. He may have lost to one of the weakest versions of Luffy, but don't forget this man was active during the war. He was blindsided by Jozu, yet he shrugged off a hit from him, a Yonko commander. He instigated a fight with Doflamingo and briefly clashed with Mihawk. He also attacked Akainu, the guy who was fighting Whitebeard one-on-one. All of these feats culminate into making Crocodile a formidable opponent than what we saw during Alabasta. However, until we see more of Crocodile, I will say Katakuri mid-diffs, but my opinion is probably gonna change in the future. Gekko Moria doesn't really have anything that can harm Katakuri. His best odds are using oars, but oars honestly isn't that big of a threat for anyone around Katakuri's level. Doflamingo casually sliced off a leg from Little Oars Jr., and Kuma nearly one-shotted him with the Ursus Shock, and the numbers who are said to be comparable to oars get one-shotted by characters like Drake. If Drake can solo one of the numbers, so can Katakuri. Since Oars is a zombie, he is incredibly resilient and cannot be put down by normal means. After trying to defeat him through strength alone once or twice, Katakuri is smart enough to know he has to break his bones like the Straw Hats did, or he'll use his mochi to immobilize Oars. After that, Moria is screwed. Sure, he can use Shadow Asgard to beef himself up, but if a fatigued Luffy can overpower Moria in that state, Katakuri certainly can as well. Kuma versus Katakuri would be one of the fights I would like to see the most out of all of these, because I honestly can't say for certain who I believe would win. I can see it going either way, really. Kuma's Paw fruit is overpowered. He has the ability to repel any physical thing, as well as intangible things like pain and exhaustion. He also has an ability called Pad Cannon, where he fires a volley of compressed air cannons at the target. These attacks can demolish stone, and Kuma states he can repel air at the speed of light. Regardless what you think of Kuma, if he can actually repel air, or even anything of that matter, at the speed of light, shouldn't really be an issue though for Katakuri. During Thriller Bark, Zoro was able to dodge these point-blank attacks while moving closer to Kuma. If Thriller Bark's Zoro can do that, then surely Katakuri, who outclasses this Zoro, can. Additionally, he has precognition, so he should effortlessly be able to dodge the Pad Cannon. As far as we know, Kuma's ultimate attack is the Ursus Shock. With this move, he compresses a mass amount of air to replicate a bomb or a giant shockwave. The more air he compresses, the greater the output. This attack destroyed everything on the surface of Thriller Bark, which is an island-sized ship. It also knocked out every one of its targets, excluding Zoro, Sanji, and Brook, but they were all ready to pass out at that moment. Given how destructive this technique is, I think a point-blank hit from this attack is going to do noticeable damage to Katakuri. It's not enough to fatally injure him or put him down, but he might want to avoid it if possible. In fact, Katakuri might not allow Kuma the opportunity to use this since he has Future Sight. In the anime, it takes Kuma an entire soundtrack to charge this attack, but the manga gives me the impression it only takes a couple of seconds. Kuma can try to repel himself fast enough to speed blitz Katakuri and send him away, or expel his own pain and exhaustion to heal himself, or even transfer his pain to Katakuri. But because of his future sight, I can't see a scenario where Katakuri cannot anticipate that. At first, he didn't allow Luffy to enter Gear 4th, so he's not going to provide Kuma with the opportunity either. We might see more of what Kuma is capable of, but as of now, I'm going to say Katakuri wins mid to high diff. Kuma's Devil Fruit is pretty haxed, but he's not the only haxed Devil Fruit user Katakuri has to worry about. Boa Hancock's Love Fruit allows her to petrify anything to stone. This even includes inanimate objects like cannonballs. It's stated that anyone who feels even the slightest attraction towards the user is affected by the fruit's power. And because Boa Hancock is claimed to be the most beautiful person, there are few who can resist her power. And one doesn't have to feel overt lust toward her in order to be turned to stone. The love that one must feel in order to be petrified also includes simply thinking the user is cute or having admiration for the user. Katakuri wouldn't simp over her, but I can't imagine him being immune to her powers. His future sight will come in handy to evade her attacks though. But what's going to make it significantly harder is Katakuri needs to dodge all of her attacks, or else it's game over. Just one hit from a projectile is going to petrify him head to toe. He can take a few direct hits since that only petrifies the immediate area, but every hit is going to severely hinder his combat abilities. In close combat, Katakuri doesn't stand a chance due to Hancock's haxed paired with her speed, which probably rivals his own. Realistically, Katakuri would use his observation haki to anticipate her attacks and spam power mochi and his awakening to avoid close combat. It wouldn't be an easy victory, but Katakuri would take it with high difficulty. Although I can't say the same for Katakuri versus Doflamingo, because let's be honest, Doflamingo is getting his cheeks absolutely obliterated. Katakuri has superior haki, superior speed, superior durability, and possibly a superior awakening. This one is not even up for debate because we've seen how both of them performed against Gear 4th Luffy. Doflamingo was sent flying across Dressrosa and was hanging by a thread after Gear 4th ran out. When Luffy reactivated Gear 4th for a second time, he put Doflamingo down with a single hit. And Luffy wasn't even struggling against Doflamingo in this state. He effortlessly countered everything Doflamingo threw at him. So how about Katakuri? Katakuri got rocked several times while he was disoriented, yet he ate those attacks from Gear 4th Luffy. He was hardly phased, and even countered Bound Man pretty hard once he regained his composure. On top of that, Luffy was becoming more adept to fighting Katakuri, as his observation haki was becoming equal to his own. Once Luffy was at Katakuri's level, he re-entered Gear 4th again in his Snake Man form, and barely defeated Katakuri by an inch. If a stronger Gear 4th Luffy was barely able to scrape out a victory against Katakuri, there's no way Doflamingo was beating Katakuri when he got plowed by a weaker Gear 4th Luffy. Katakuri wins with low to mid diff. Jinbe's mastery of Fishman Karate means he can control the water particles in the air, allowing him to deliver shockwave-based attacks, so he doesn't even need to make contact to harm his opponents. Additionally, his physical abilities make him quite tanky, and he can dish out some serious damage. Who's Who was just a tier below Kaido's Yonko commanders, and Jinbe was eating all of his attacks. And when Jinbe got serious, he broke Who's Who's fingers with his armament haki alone, then proceeded to one-shot him. Jinbe was also able to hold off a Kainu for a bit during Marineford, but his greatest feat is surviving a direct hit from Big Mom. It sent him flying, but he was hungry for more. He came back and landed a hit so powerful that he knocked Big Mom off the Thousand Sunny. Granted, he did all of this when Big Mom was weakened due to her hunger pain, but even this weakened Big Mom is still a beast. Jinbe has some on-point armament haki, but I don't know if he has superior armament haki over Katakuri. Katakuri either has advanced armament haki, or he increases his armament haki by compressing his mochi. His observation haki gives him a huge advantage in a straight-up one-on-one brawl. Jinbe may be fast enough to keep up with Who's Who, but I don't think he's fast enough to keep up with Katakuri, who's rivaling Snake Man. It's going to be a tough fight, but Katakuri wins mid to high difficulty. But maybe we might see that change when we see Jinbe go all out. Law's main power comes from having the most hacked devil fruit in this series. He's able to create a sphere, which he calls Room, which can engulf an island as large as Onigashima. Within this sphere, Law can do so many things it's easy to lose track of everything he can do. He can slice anyone and anything and stitch them together however he pleases, possess free control of everything and move them with telekinesis, as well as teleporting anything in his room by switching places with something else. Law has also awakened his devil fruit, so he can now apply what he calls a K-room to his sword. allowing him to extend his sword as long as he desires. He can apply a rune to anything that is pierced by his sword, and he can do whatever he wants to the target, as seen with the Big Mom where he took away her ability to generate sound. Law also has some really insane durability. He survived a hit from Kaido's Thunder Bagua, and while it momentarily put him down, he got back up to continue the fight and later fought Big Mom. Keep in mind that post-Whole Cake Island Luffy got one-shotted by this attack, yet Law came back for more. Not only can he withstand attacks from an Emperor, Law has shown he is capable of damaging them as well. His biggest drawback though is that using his rune takes a hit on his stamina. But even if he doesn't have that much stamina compared to Katakuri, Law has shown he is a very strategic fighter. Even with Future Sight, Law will eventually find an opening to seriously harm Katakuri. Even if Katakuri gets some solid hits on Law, it's not enough to put him down, so Law takes this fight with no more than mid difficulty. Next up is Weevil. We haven't seen Weevil fight yet, and everything we know comes from lore, since Kizaru has compared Weevil to a young Whitebeard and says that they are both overwhelmingly strong. Now, I'm not saying Weevil is on par with the young Whitebeard, just that they're both powerful. Given that Green Bull was able to defeat Weevil, I think Weevil is powerful, but maybe as powerful as young Whitebeard is a bit of an exaggeration. His biggest drawback though is that he's not very bright. The fact he's still such a huge anomaly makes it harder to say who would win. For now, all I'm going to say is that if he's really around the same power as young Whitebeard, then he is low-diffing Katakuri. And finally, we have a Blackbeard. And this is another one that should be obvious. He got the drop on Ace, the Revolutionary Army, Law, and defeated all of them. He even got the drop on Shanks, and keep in mind, Shanks said that scar Blackbeard gave him was no accident. Shanks did not lower his guard, yet pre-Devil Fruit Blackbeard was able to scar him. Blackbeard can now nullify Devil Fruits and create tremors. It's not up for discussion who's winning this fight. Blackbeard is low-diffing Katakuri. Anyways, that's gonna do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, then please consider sharing, and subscribing. I'll catch you in the next one. Later.